Hey everyone, Kevin here with Divinely Designed, and I thought I would do kind of a quick video on making embellishments from scratch. So I've been playing around recently with some resin pieces, and I wanted to kind of just make my own embellishment, like something that I could create and then I could kind of replicate by putting it into a mold, and then I could use it over and over again. So that was sort of the why I started doing this. So how I'm making mine is by using some clay, and this happens to be called Plus, and it's just from the craft store. So it's from, I think this is from Michael's. But there are lots of different kinds of clay out there. This is an air dry clay, and how I started making my embellishment was partially by sculpting the clay myself, and then part of it I did as a mold. Now I have some silicone molds already. These are two that I used to make this particular embellishment I'm going to talk about today, and this is pretty easy to use actually. So all I really did for the molded parts is just take the clay and kind of squish it into the mold itself. Now some molds that you use are obviously more detailed than others and may take a little bit more care. If you have a really super detailed mold, what you could do is let the clay dry in the mold itself. And I used the crown as part of this particular embellishment from, this is a Mod Podge mold, and this is pretty detailed, so it might be good to let that one sort of dry in the mold itself. But this one is in a really stretchy silicone here, so I can actually kind of squish it in and then just take it out, and I have my mold. Now obviously I did that pretty quickly, so I got a little divot there, but it's not really hard, you know, if you have an existing mold. Now this mold I actually made from, I think it's a Tim Holtz metal wing. And so I made these, you know, this silicone mold a long time ago, and that just lets me make this clay mold. So this was one part that I used, and I used the crown from this mold. So those gave me these, which I've let air dry. And then the other part that I did for this particular one was just hand sculpt a heart. And I'm not going to take the time to sort of finish it here, but you know, that it was a pretty easy shape. I'm certainly not the best sculptor in the world. In fact, I think I'm pretty poor at it. But a simple shape like a heart I could do on my own, and so all I did was sculpt that heart, and then I glued the various pieces. Once they were all dry, I glued them together in the way I wanted, so that they were all one sort of solid piece. And then what I ended up with was this. So here you can see my heart, flying heart with a crown. What I did after it was all dry and the glue was dried, I created a foam core box, which I then hot glued this down to, so it's nice and secure against that back piece of paper there. And then I created a silicone mold from this. So now the silicone I use is something called Alumilite. This is a fairly big, well, not a big batch, but you can buy this from Alumilite from the website itself. But this is the same company that makes the resin called amazing casting resin that you can find in craft stores like Michael's and AC Moore and Hobby Lobby and things like that. It's the same company. So this particular silicone is a 10-to-1 ratio. So it's 10 parts of this material and then 1 part of the catalyst. Now this particular one is called Alumilite High Strength 3. And you simply mix it up until you don't have any streaks left in your mixture. And it'll come out to this really sort of pale pink. Once all of your mixture is nice and smooth and there's no streaks in it, you'd pour it into here. Now I've already done that. So this is the mold here that came out of that. So you would just pour in your silicone in here. You let it sit for 24 hours. What I do is take a scalpel or an X-Acto blade and then just run it around the edge once it's all dry. And again, you usually let this sit for 24 hours. So run it around the edge, and then you're able to sort of pull up the sides right from the foam core box. Now, you don't have to, I mean, you could just break the box apart too, but generally if it's a small mold like this, you can just lift it right out. So that gave me my silicone mold, and then I used the amazing casting resin. But this mixture is a 1-to-1 ratio. So there's 2 liquids. You can do it by weight or volume, mix them together, and then pour them into the cavity here. Now, this particular product, you don't have a ton of time to work with it. Now, the good thing is it cures super fast. So you pour it in this mold, and probably 5 to 10 minutes later, you can take it out and actually work with the piece. Now, it may be a little bit soft when you take it out, but it will hold its shape very well. And the cool thing about that is, if you have a resin piece that you want to, let's say, mold to a rounded shape, you can actually take it out, and while it's sort of still soft, put it on the shape that you want and allow it to sit for another 5 or 10 minutes, and then it will hold that shape. So the bad side about this is you don't have a ton of time. So in order, if you have a really complicated mold and you're pouring a lot, or you have to get into these little small spaces, you have to do it fairly quickly. The small spaces, what I found is very helpful is just to take like a pokey tool or a stylus or whatever it is, and then when you have the resin in there, just sort of touch the resin in there, and it will help the resin to flow into those really small spots. That way you'll have a nice detailed casting when you're all finished. So that's the resin piece I used, that's the mold I used to cast the resin piece, and then what you end up with is this. So I can cast this over and over, and I could use this on projects now. This is one of the ones I cast that is untreated. It's just straight from the mold. This is one that I used the Prima Patina pastes on, and I did a video recently about using those, so that link will be down below. So this is one that I've sort of distressed, and it has that kind of coppery look to it. And this is another one that I did in a more sort of realistic, well, I don't know about realistic, but not distressed. So this is one I painted with acrylic paints and some shimmer paints, and used some Inca Gold on the crown to give it a shine. And this is a card that I created kind of as a Mother's Day card, as a mixed media piece. I'm really happy with the way it came out here. I really like the look of that. So that's it. Just a really sort of short video on making those. Comments, questions, leave them below. And have a great Mother's Day weekend, everyone. Bye.